Greetings, lords and ladies. There is a lot to talk about, and there's only so much time in the day, and I'm only a single mortal man, and therefore I can only do so much. But for now, we're going to start with the release teaser trailer, the latest one, that includes quite a number of new things. We're going to be talking about them, breaking them down, and after that, in successive days, during the week, we're going to be talking about a lot more because there's been so much that's been revealed and talked about, and it's impossible to cover it all in one video. So we're going to be talking about the things that are new in this trailer that we haven't seen before. So I'm going to skip some of the stuff that is obvious, like the Illithid planting the tadpole in you, etc., etc. So the first thing that we see is kind of new, is Karlach getting angry. We can see her inflamed, quite literally, engulfed in fire as she gets angry. She clearly, from other images, from some of the stuff we saw in the reveal during the panel from Hell, we can see her mechanical fire heart. We can see her horns have flames to them, and the little metal nodes on her skin are alit as well. So we can see this is a serious issue. And there'll probably be a lot more to say about Karlach in coming videos. And here again we see the monk facing the Dracolich, or animated dragon. We saw this before. It's quite nice, for sure, and the monk reveal was quite interesting as well. And I have to confess my ignorance here. This is a deeply mysterious creature that I do not recognize, and I've tried to find it in terms of my research, and yet there's nothing out there. It's simply not clear. What we do know is that this is a mechanical thing, perhaps some kind of automaton, perhaps something else. This is underwater. You can see the bubbles that are being blown forth from its wings, specifically from those tubes that are sticking out from the wings, which is pretty interesting because will we also have adventures under the water? I guess that's possible if we're seeing this right now. It could also be some kind of underwater craft, like a submarine of some sort, but it's not entirely clear other than it's underwater and it's clearly of mechanistic or mechanical origin. Here we see what has to be a sort of temple. And although we cannot be 100% sure about this, once again I am going to suggest that this is the symbol of a Monitor, the ancient Netherese god of the sun. We have other images from previous reveal trailers that suggest it as well. It's not a perfect replica of the symbol of a Monitor, but the sunburst is the only thing that comes to mind. And so if I had to guess, the best educated guess one could make is that this is some kind of structure devoted to a Monitor. And you can see it's on a cliff or some kind of elevated rocky outcropping. And if you compare it to some of the older images, which were suggestive of a Monitor, you can see that maybe this is the same structure, the same building that we saw in previous reveal trailers. And here we see a Tresham. A Tresham is basically a winged cat, an intelligent, magical creature that often serves as a familiar for wizards. And you might recall that Gale, at some point in time in your conversations with him, talks about having a Tresham as a pet when he was a younger lad. Is it the same Tresham? Maybe, who knows. But in any event, this is definitely a Tresham. Very cute and a very nice addition. And it's not entirely clear what this creature is. I could hazard a guess. Maybe it's a flump, but it doesn't really look like a flump. It doesn't look like a death embrace either, so who knows what this is exactly. Maybe it's their interpretation of a flump. I have my doubts. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And here we see a Spectator. Spectator is a powerful magical monster related to the much more familiar, at least more familiar to most people, Beholder, but it's not a Beholder, it's a Spectator. Beholders are more powerful, and they typically have a lot more tentacles swarming about. Another big difference between Spectators and Beholders, apart from Spectators having fewer tentacles and being less powerful, is that they're typically lawful neutral, and so they can be reasoned with, whereas Beholders are chaotic evil, very, very malicious, and typically with Beholders there's very little you can do to negotiate with them. So who knows why the Spectator is hostile, but Spectators are less powerful, fewer tentacles, and are lawful neutral. So regarding this Drow lady, if I had to hazard a guess, she's some sort of cleric, but nonetheless, if you look at the surrounding landscape, and I think this is a little bit more relevant, a little bit more interesting and important, this is probably the Astral Plane. You can see the rocks, you can see the ether in the background. She's casting some sort of spell. We don't know exactly what kind of spell, but this is probably the Astral Plane, which means we're almost guaranteed to be exploring the Astral Plane. I've made this prediction before, and here we see it. We've seen it before, by the way, in that other trailer with the strange angel-like being that people were debating. So another snippet of the Astral Plane here, and probably some character we'll meet along the way, and I suspect she's a cleric. Now talk about gigantic reveals. In this set of images, we see none other than almost certainly Vlaakith, the Lich Queen herself, who is a kind of quasi-deity. And the Githyanki that's supplicating her appears to be a player-made Githyanki, not Lizelle, but she is very impressive, Vlaakith is. She's obviously using some kind of powerful magic, some kind of illusion here. Vlaakith ultimately is a lich, and she does not look as well preserved as she's presenting here. But what a reveal. We're going to be talking to Vlaakith potentially if we play Githyanki. That is a very big deal indeed. And this scene again is some kind of scene from the Astral Plane, perhaps, with Gale and someone he's romancing. And again, we see this fire burning in Karlach. She is apparently very dangerous. It kind of reminds me of the character Rogue from the X-Men in the Marvel Comics, because she wasn't able to touch anybody for fear of draining their power, although in this case, it's the fire that could burn you if you get romantically involved with Karlach, which is a very nice touch. Next to the Vlaakith reveal, I'd argue, this is the highlight of the teaser trailer, namely the actual revelation of the third chosen, as it were, Orin, the woman Orin, who is the chosen of Baal. She looks, to be perfectly honest, somewhat undead, if I had to hazard a guess. She doesn't look fully human, and she's revealed here, so that's a nice touch. Then we see the evil hobgoblin that was participating in the murder mystery that has been ongoing, that is talking about being chosen. It's not clear whether it's talking to you, the player, or to Orin, the woman, although I might hazard a guess. I think it is the Dark Urge. Now, the Dark Urge origin character deserves its own video, obviously, which I totally have planned. But in this case, I think this hobgoblin is talking to the Dark Urge. And lo and behold, what do we see in the next slide? We see something rather incredible. We see none other than a representation of Baal himself, the Slayer. Now, in actual lore in terms of pen and paper, that's not what the Slayer looks like, but this Slayer form, or this monstrous form, is an engine of destruction that you can transform into if you play Baldur's Gate 2. It is very powerful, and here we see the same creature as an avatar of Baal. The question is, are you becoming the avatar of Baal, or is the woman Orin becoming the avatar of Baal? Who exactly is the chosen one? And that's an open question. It could be that the Dark Urge is, again, a lot more to say about that in a separate video, or it could be that Orin is. And finally, we see the symbol of Baal, the traditional symbol of Baal, the skull with illuminated eyes, and the blood droplets surrounding the skull. And I think we can tell from the evidence we have gathered hitherto thus far that Baal is probably going to be part of the last act of the game, and Merkel is probably part of the first, and Bane is probably part of the second, based on the evidence we have so far. Anyway, that's a breakdown of all the latest and newest stuff in the latest teaser trailer. But until then, if you like what I do, you can join my Discord. We talk a lot about Baldur's Gate 3 there and other RPGs, so feel free to join. And if you can like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, share, it'd be much appreciated. Helps the growth of the channel a lot, and I'll check you out next time. Take care.